Welcome to the Purposecaping podcast, Melissa.
Thank you for having me, Amanda. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. And just for listeners to know, selfishly, I wanted you on this podcast so I could pick your brain about your zone of genius of really helping scholars find the money they need for higher education. As you know, I have all of these children who I have been intentionally cultivating my oldest turned 18 yesterday. I
Hey.
know. Thank you. And so I think when we set out as parents to guide our children and we see them as babies, yes, we're thinking about the future, but it comes up so quickly. And I don't think I was aware or prepared for just the costs of education in terms of educating my children to the standard that I desire. So, this is not about me. This is about you, but I am excited to learn from you. So, tell me about capturing greatness, the movement, the company, the mission. How did you get started doing this work? Tell us about the work that you're doing. Like, set us up to understand who we are learning from today.
Absolutely. So, Capture Greatness is an organization that I started 12 years ago. And I started in Philadelphia, where I live, helping students earn scholarships to get to college. I was working in the college counseling space in high school, and I realized that many of my students would come back after a semester or two saying that they were taking breaks, and I'm like, well, what's going on here? And so they did not have the money to pay tuition semester after semester. And what it meant was many of them, and I know because I helped them and their families with their FAFSAs, it meant that many of the students I sent to college were actually leaving early without the degree, but indebted. And so I felt in some ways personally responsible that I was, helping families get access to student loan debt, but not really helping them understand how much money it would take and where to find the money to get their kids all the way through school. So I set out on a mission because in Philadelphia, we didn't have organizations that were like dedicated to scholarship success. So I set out on a mission to make sure that if I was sending a kid to college, I was going to send them with scholarships. And the brainchild was Scholarship Club. And through scholarship clubs, the Capture Greatness Scholarship Clubs, we've been able to help students win over $12 million in scholarships for college. We got 4 Gates Millennium Scholars before that program stopped. We have Quest Bridge Scholars. So we have students who are going to school and have graduated from school with a true refund, a surplus,
Mm.
right? So they're not cashing out student loans. They're actually cashing out surplus scholarship money to be able to put them on good financial standing while they're in college and get them through.
That is incredible. And so it sounds like you were in your full time role and saw an opportunity to make a bigger impact and support people in a way that was, I guess, more important. Because, like you said, it's one thing to get in and to have one good semester. But if you can't afford to continue paying, college is hard enough. It's hard enough to do your work, right? And then you're worrying about paying the bill. That is so interesting. So tell me about the Scholars Club or the Scholarship Club, like the mechanics of all of this. And also the kids that you're helping. Are these all like, the 4.0 kids? What's the profile of the students and how does this all work?
Yeah. So it started with just the students that I had access to
Mhm.
in the schools that I was working in. Eventually, Capture Greatness became its own organization, and I was able to work across different schools and different programs, different college access organizations. And so students would come with all different profiles. Um, so it does not, scholarship success does not require that your child is a 4.0 student. Actually, I have stories and I write about it in the book of students who were performing lower academically than their peers and still won the scholarship over their peers. And so really the scholarship club model was a model that I created to help students identify what their strengths are, identify what their passions are for the future, and how to tell powerful personal stories so that they were compelling to scholarship panels. And so that's the crux of it. One of the things that I found, and at the time, being in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania was graduating the second most highly indebted group of college graduates because of the way the state funds our schools. And so that's not in a very generous way. And so while we had, lower tuition costs, most of my students would have a gap of about $9,000 a year. And that's hard for many parents to be able to make up. I always said, like, you might not be able to work enough overtime, to close this gap and still maintain your household and things like that. And so I knew that that's what Philadelphia students were up against. But really, one of the things that I've learned over the course of this work is any student could get massive scholarship success if they are, in fact, a true scholar. So today, and I'm a mom now, so today I'm on a mission to help moms understand that if we prep your child early, if we turn them into a scholar early, your chances of getting scholarships for college far outpaces anyone else's, because it's not just what a student is writing or external scholarships that they find. It's the fact that the majority of scholarship money actually exists at the colleges and universities themselves. So if your child is not applying to the right college or university for your family profile, then you are more likely to be a parent or a household that's going to be paying um, a very high amount of money, to get your kid to school, even if it's like a middle of the road institution, for a number of different factors. So a lot of it is the essay coaching. And then the other part, for me, my personal mission is to help families win 30 million. So from 12 to $30 million by 2030 scholarship challenge, because there are ways that we can, and as moms, that we can not sacrifice our own retirement, our own financial well-being, but still get the outcomes that we want for our children and that we've been working hard for and preparing them for all of these years.
That is so fantastic. If a student is truly a scholar, getting funding is not an issue. But before that, you said that a big part of your process is helping students understand their strengths and their story. And I have to flag that because that's such a huge part of Package Your Genius and the work that I've been doing for so many years. And I've been preaching the gospel that we really do not invest enough in students. Like, the very reason that my work is necessary, I think, is because we're not showing young people how to assess their strengths, how to assess their skills, how to craft a narrative around what they want and what they're good at and what they desire, the impact they desire to make in this world. And so this is really a great starting point for people to be able to have not only money for school, but an awareness of how to see themselves more clearly and then articulate that value to other people. That's a huge thing that I work with adults on. And, I have teenagers. So I also know how easy it is for them to overlook huge aspects of their story and narrative that could potentially attract people. And so that I just wanted to flag that you're doing the Lord's work with that, because it's really criminal that we don't teach young people how to do this. But I mean, I think it's probably also by design, because if they did know how to do this, how empowered would they be? How many more opportunities would be open for them if they just knew how to say, this is who I am and this is what I have to offer, regardless of my GPA, regardless of my neighborhood, or what you see when you look at me. I can articulate the value I provide, the problems that I solve. I wanted to flag that, but I want to follow up on this notion of a scholar. What does that mean when you say if you are a scholar, you can get scholarships? Like, so we are all trying to get our kids to the point where they are attractive to investment. How do we prepare them, especially if there's a mother listening now who has younger children? I've got a whole span. I've got the teens who are in college, getting ready to go to college, and then I have the pre-K. So what do I need to be doing for her to get her in the mode of being a scholar early? And also, how do I support my older kids with that scholar identity?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I try to impress upon parents and students is, often what we require of our students is for them to literally be a good student, go to school, get good grades, make sure your behavior is okay, show up on time, right? Um, but scholarships, though, are intended for students who have a life and a mission beyond just, going to get A's and B's in school. And I don't think enough of us know that. And so in the second edition of Scholars Get Dollars, I actually created a strategic scholar framework. So if you think about the word scholar as an acronym, I want moms to think about it like this. Yes, you want your child to be studious. You want your child to be community minded. You want your child to be holistically developed, organized leaders, and relationship builders. I'll tell you why. So the first part we got, go to school, get good grades, right? But even for the students coming from the best high schools, it's hard for them to get into the Ivies if that's all they're offering. So that's just the foundational piece. But we also want our students to be community minded. And so that means that your child has identified causes that make sense for who they are and that they know that there are ways that they can contribute, right, to the communities that they're a part of to make something better. Okay. Third part is going to be holistically developed. So this means that your child should be developed both inside and outside of the classroom. So what extracurriculars are they involved in? What are the character building opportunities you're putting in front of them or that they're seeking out? Are they also interested in the arts? You also don't want a child that only knows how to get good grades and knows nothing else about themselves. You want them to be organized because if you are really on a mission of creating a scholar, there are going to be things like letters of recommendation, community service hours, report cards, accolades that you want them to be able to hold on to and be able to access when the time comes. Some of these scholarships are really extensive in what they ask for. So, for instance, the Gates Millennium Scholarship required 8 essays from the student, but they also required them to have about 4 recommenders, and as recommenders, they had to write essays too, right? And so that brings me to leaders, the A is for and relationship builders. If you don't have a child that has shown up, had, taken some initiative, led some efforts, not just a participant in everything that they're a part of, but actually raise their hand and say, you know what, I think I will be on student council. I can become captain of my team. Leadership is really important because leaders drives, what happens in the future. And
Mhm.
then the relationship builders. Unfortunately, as much as we love our children and we would write recommendations for them all day, it doesn't fly. No one cares about what your mom and your family thinks about you. You need other adults to vouch for you. And again, in different capacities. So it doesn't really serve our children when all of their letters of recommendation is coming from teachers because they're only talking about them in one facet, right? And that's who they are academically. You want them to have relationships with, like, let's say their managers if they worked part-time while in high school, hire administrators in the school because they are a part of leadership or became a ambassador for their school. Also your maybe worship leaders and folks who know them in the community. And so we want to have a more expansive approach to how we're raising our children. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. But again, you want to be strategic about it because your leadership, your initiative, and your community service could all be clumped together as one. And it can happen when, if you go to church, it could happen in your church community, right? So you don't have to have your kid in 20 different places, but it is important for us to know that beyond the grades, there are other things that you want to make sure your child is checking a box of in order to be a good scholar.
I love that. Something I remember you saying, and I feel like I might botch it. So you correct me if I do. You were saying to me that a scholarship is an investment. It's
Yes.
something else is like,
I could tell you
tell me what it was.
because I love to say it and I
Yeah,
want
say it
people to
again.
hear it and I want them to remember it. Okay. Scholarships are not rewards for what you have done in the past. Scholarships are investments in what you will do in the future. And this is where the narrative really comes in because the average student, when they're writing their essays for college admission or scholarships, they talk about all the things they've done. And then it's like the end, right? So I'm so great. Look at what I did. The end, go ahead and accept me. And it's like, no, right? Because you did those things because you were supposed to do it, you were capable of doing it, and, good for you. But everybody is coming to this invitation to apply for a scholarship with a similar profile. And scholarships, in a lot of ways, are more selective than colleges, right? Because when you apply to college, they're like, all right, tell us why you think we're a good fit. But for scholarships, they'll tell you, if you don't have a 3.5, don't even write to us. We're not considering it. So I really want students and parents to think about the scholarship attainment process as an invitation to an opportunity for people to invest in your children. And the only way they can gauge what their return on investment will be is part of the narrative, part of what your child is writing is about their commitment to something in the future, which is why developing a scholar is so important because you can't convince me that you are going to do something great for humanity, society, segments of the population if you don't already have practice in doing that. So why would I trust that you're the person I should invest my money in if you have no leadership skills, experience, you've never tried your hand at anything? And I don't think that parents understand that. I think they're like, oh, my kid is always on honor roll. They're going to get scholarships. Well, listen, it's an honor roll at every school, every quarter. You know what I mean? Like it's a ton of honor roll kids. If that was the criteria for scholarship attainment, we would all be debt free.
That's good. And see, now my wheels are turning. One of the things that it makes me think about the community aspect because, yes, if you're investing in someone and you're putting your money into them, you want to know that they are going to bring some sort of an impact to the community at large. What about like entrepreneurship and kids who are doing businesses, not necessarily community projects, but they're showing initiative through entrepreneurship? Does that make you a bit of a leader in this scholar
Of
framework?
course. Of course. And here's why entrepreneurship, anything where you show initiative, right? The reason why is because for colleges and scholarship panels, they got to know that they're investing in students who have the ambition to do something more, and the thing that I want people to understand this, right? Scholarships are very different for the most part. The community scholarships, like the external scholarships, are different in that usually, the money that funds a scholarship has been left by someone who has passed on. So, a lot of scholarships are created in honor of someone, or they're created from corporate partners or corporate organizations that are trying to make an investment in the communities, that they're a part of. And so, there's like an unspoken rule where if they have this money to invest in students, they want to see a return on investment because they need that money to go really far. You're not going to exhaust all the money in the scholarship fund for a particular graduating year. It has to keep multiplying. But at the end of the day, 10 years, from now, they want to say, hey, we helped to cultivate this student. That's why you see in a lot of scholarship opportunities, there's a component of mentorship involved, because they are trying to build relationship and they're trying to also create a pathway of success because it's not, and students often think they just want me to go to school, and not have to worry about the money. But it's not about you as much as it is the mission that they're trying to drive forward. And that's why I always say you have to do research. Why does the scholarship exist? And that's another thing that comes into our essays. While some essays can be, recycled, I always encourage, and there's actually a free resource on the website capturegreatness.org where it helps you not only identify the scholarships, but find out why they exist and think about how you're going to shift your narrative to help them meet their mission. And so those are some of the things that we want to keep top of mind as our students are actually applying, going through the application process for external scholarships.
Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about money from the standpoint of parents and families who are high earning and, not independently wealthy, but solidly six figures. And so when they embark on this journey of paying for college, it can be a rude awakening, you know, see that sticker price is 5,000 per year for undergraduate studies. So talk to me about how you've started helping and creating strategy for people who may be too wealthy for aid or for some of the scholarships that are targeting students who come from under-resourced, underprivileged backgrounds. So maybe you make too much money for your child to qualify for those, but you are not able to pay $85,000 per year out of pocket. You just are not set up to do that, but you're in the middle. I feel like that's a forgotten audience in so much of this conversation, but we're here. Help us.
And I'm raising my hand for it too, right? And that's one of the reasons why I was like, you know what? I need to help hardworking moms because, for many of us, our children are not going to be first into college. And so, we've already gone and we understand the value of a college education. And that is something that we also want for our children. So when you see the $85,000 per year sticker price, the first thing I want to say is when you're looking at how much a college costs, it's always a sticker price, right? So that is not the amount that the college or university is expecting any parent to actually pay for their student to attend. What they are trying to do is broadcast to the world their value. Okay. And so they're like, listen, we over here, we're doing this. We've been around for 200 years on and on. You know what I mean? Like our alumni are the best and have the best seats, our positions in society. And so therefore, this education, I want you to think about it at $1,000 market rate. So that's the first thing. So I do not want parents to be discouraged by sticker price. And honestly, for our six-figure families, one of the things that we need to do is begin to run towards the schools with the higher sticker prices because more likely than not, they are also the schools with the best endowments and the most generous scholarship offers. And so that is one of the things that I see parents get wrong. And I mean, every year, mom's like, I told her, don't even apply, don't even look at that school. I'm like, well, whoa, 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 let's look, right? But this is one of the reasons why you want your child to be a scholar because you want them to be competitive enough to earn admission into their school if it's a good fit for them. So that's the first part. The bulk of scholarship money actually comes from colleges and universities themselves. So when they are looking at the applicants, they know that we are not only offering admission, but we will also be offering financial aid to them. Now, here's the trick. There are going to be schools, everybody actually has a unique scholarship strategy depending on how much money your household brings in and who your child is, what their scholar profile looks like. And so one of the things that I like to tell parents is, Jay-Z has this line in his song, y'all on the ground with money to your ear. We don't call that money over here. So for many of us, right, we're at these multiple six-figure income levels, but some of the schools, like if we take many of the Ivies, they now have a commitment that if you gain admission to the school and you're coming from a household that's earning $200,000 tuition free. So a lot of times middle income families don't realize there's a skill. It doesn't stop there, right? But what they're saying is if you're coming from a household that's earning $200,000 or less, if you get in, we got you.
You
You
got
don't have to worry about paying. But let's say you earn $300,000. There is still financial aid there. It goes from being totally free to not being totally free, but there's financial aid there for those students. And so what we need to do is make our students much more competitive, right?
it.
So that they're able to do that. So I have a friend, she has both of her sons graduated from Harvard, and this is a Black family. Their first choice school was Howard. They
Wow.
went to Harvard because it was a free education,
I know
right?
that's right.
And so in our community, there's so much that we're trying to weigh, but that's one of the things that we need to allow our kids to apply for some of the more competitive seats and make sure that they actually are competitive candidates so that that's actually a choice for them if they choose to go that path, because it can save us tens of thousands of dollars when it comes to paying for their tuition. I would also offer that thinking about how to send your kid to college can start before they become a full-time college student. So for families that's in the six-figure range, I would definitely help my kid acquire college credits before they actually get to school. A lot of the schools, especially if you go through College Board, you can see which AP exams will actually transfer into college course credit for many of the universities in the US. Those are ways that we can get the college credits at a discounted rate. There are dual enrollment programs in different schools. So there's so many different things that we can do. But for the most part, unless your child is like, I want to call like an all-star scholar at some of our state schools and universities, depending on which state you're in. But like in Pennsylvania, for instance, unless those students are coming in as like some of their presidential scholars, a six-figure household might find themselves paying more for the student to attend like the public flagship school because they have so many more students, so much less money, right, to award to students. But when it comes to our private schools, the sticker prices are going to be really high. But here's the thing. In private schools, the tuition is tuition, doesn't matter which state you come from. So they're not doing in-state, out-of-state tuition. And then many of them have more generous policies in terms of supporting families that are making healthy incomes to get their kids through school. And then we just have some schools that are absolutely zero loan schools. So they've made commitments institutionally that says if a student gets here, we're going to figure out how to close that gap so that they don't leave our university burdened with student debt. So there's strategies for everyone.
Now, what about the 529? 'Cause I know that's a hot topic for you, and you have some very interesting opinions about the 529 savings plan. I was never a big fan of it, but you tell me. It seems like the responsible thing to do. They have the flyers and all the information. As soon as you have a baby, it's like
I know.
529, 529. It's like, okay. So
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on the 529?
So personally, I'm not subscribing to a 529 plan. And
Okay.
I've been doing research and looking at what the benefits are. And essentially, the 529 plan offers some tax advantages for folks who are saving for their children to go to college. And so it can be helpful for some, but I think that everybody needs to look at what's going on in their household and think about what makes the most sense. So again, as a mom now, I'm on this mission to make sure that moms and families are financially sound while we're sending kids to college. And so here's why I'm not subscribing to the 529 plan. First of all, I do not like earmarked money when it's my money.
Mm,
Okay. And so the 529 plan now, you can roll over unused funds in a 529 plan to a retirement account, but it's not your retirement account.
right.
So as the parent, you're putting the money in, saving it for your child, right? And you're investing this money in the market usually. And I'll get back to again why usually it's not as advantageous for most of us. So research has shown that most people don't start saving for college until their kid is like 7 and sometimes older. But this is money that's going into the market. And so with such a short time span before your child gets to college, often we can't afford for the market to tank or go down, right? When we actually need to pull that money. So that's one. Often we don't have a long enough runway for that money to actually grow and make sense for it to be earmarked. But when I think about, my ambitions and what I'm doing, in order for me to build the wealth that I need to build for my daughter, I don't want money earmarked and I don't want to be discouraged from using money that I have on hand that I can invest in something that's going to be income producing. And so I really am encouraging moms, like, look at the ways in which that money might be able to put you in a more financially sound situation when your kids get to school so that there is still opportunity for you to enjoy that time with them. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you have a car note, maybe pay off your car instead of put it in a 529 plan. That way, when your kid is in school, you're not paying a car note while trying to figure out, how you're going to supplement their tuition costs if they don't get scholarships to pay for all of it. If you have a mortgage, do that, fund your retirement account. So let's just make sure that we're all fiscally sound. Now, if you have a surplus, and right, and this is always a caveat, if you have a surplus of money and it's just so much you don't know what to do with, start the 529 plan, put it in the market. You can for sure even switch out beneficiaries. You have 3 children. So if your oldest doesn't use it, it can work for your second. It can also support students through graduate school education, all of those things. But you will take a hit if your child does not need the money. It's not very easy to just convert that into a down payment for a home. Whereas if you had been, keeping it in your own brokerage account or keeping it just not earmarked, you could do a lot of different things
Yeah.
with the money and even invest in a business that, will bring in the additional income to be able to support the lifestyle that you want. And so that's really what I want for parents. And many of us are still battling our own debt, student loan debt under this new plan that Trump is proposing. Instead of it taking 10 years to get the public student loan forgiveness, he wants people to pay on their student loans for 30 years before, before student loan cancellation or forgiveness is even considered, right? And so in those instances, it makes more sense to go ahead and get rid of the things that you will be shelling out to other folks so that you can have the money to support your child. But yeah, take care of yourself first and
Put your
then
oxygen
let's do
mask
it.
on first. Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
As a parent who is actively, helping children through the college application and first year college and paying all of these college bills, um, I want to know, going back to that profile of the six-figure earning family, when that family is faced with the prospect of spending tens of thousands of dollars for college. And they say, okay, well, let's look at the scholarship opportunities that are out there. Can you kind of ground us in where we need to start, what opportunities we need to just kind of ignore because those are not for us, so that we can
Yeah.
streamline this process because there's so much out there that it is literally another full-time job to do the research, to find the opportunities, to get your child information to apply and write the essays, etc. And just reading through the requirements can eat up a lot of time. Can you just point that profile of a parent in the right direction in terms of what are some of the categories of scholarships that we're even eligible for, so we're not wasting time going after, the scholarships that they are going to say, oh no, sorry, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not a
Um,
fit.
you're right. And so a large chunk of external community-based scholarships are also going to be need-based. And so most six-figure families are not going to fit within the need-based. So some of the largest scholarships that we hear, like Dell, Coca-Cola, all of those have a need-based component, right? And usually it's like if your child is Pell Grant eligible, then they are probably eligible for these scholarships. And so for six-figure families, that's not going to be the case. But that's when you want to start to, and I say start in your own backyard. So besides the schools that your child is applying for, you want to be looking at affiliations. So what are some of your professional affiliations? Are you or dad in a union that might also provide some level of scholarship or contribution towards college? You might look at employers. Once students are in college and able to intern or work, many of those programs come with some level of tuition assistance, tuition reimbursement. If it's at their school, it could be tuition remission. And so we want to go beyond scholarships. For many six-figure families, especially if you're raising a scholar, your child is talented in other areas. So go beyond the scholarship category and actually look for competitions, right? So if your child is heavy in STEM, there are robotics competitions. There are, different STEM competitions. If you're African American or of African descent, every year the NAACP does the XO competition. And so I competed in XO in high school. You can compete every year of high school and get cash awards as well as additional support there. And so you want to look at your civic groups and organizations. Again, this is why we want our kids to be in the community. If you subscribe to a faith-based group, sometimes it might not be like within the institution. At my church, we do have a scholarship committee, so we do offer scholarships from the church, but there are national convenings, like, the National Baptist convening and things like that. And so these are places where you will be able to find scholarships that are not tied necessarily to need, but to service, but to interest. What are your child's intellectual interests beyond that? And then don't forget, we're sending kids to college, and often they have an inclination of the type of career field that they want to go into. These are the same folks that could sponsor them. Years ago was a very popular scholarship. I don't know if it still exists, but Blacks at Microsoft. So affinity groups within industries where we might be underrepresented. So that could be a really good place for them to start. If your child is going to a HBCU, there are scholarship organizations that are just pulling funds for students going to HBCUs. So you want to sit down and you want to see, okay, where do we have ties? Credit unions. I say, anywhere you put your money or spend your money, right? There could be scholarship opportunity. I had a friend, she got a Nordstrom scholarship years ago in Seattle, but in her junior year for 10,000.
Wow.
Yes, and so it's a
Right.
lot. We have, like, junior, what are they called? Fraternity and sororities. If your child participates, this could be an opportunity for them. Community service opportunities on campus and campus groups could yield money for students as they're in school. So they're really all around us, but it really depends on how well you know your scholarship profile. You said earlier it's like a full-time job, and it is, right? But not for parents, for students. So it's a job for students, but I say this to them. If it takes you 4 hours to apply for a scholarship and you won $1,000, right, from that effort, you just made $250 an hour. And most of us are going to school to study for things that's not even going to be, our wage or our income when we graduate. And so, yes, it is a job. And I don't have any compassion for if there's other things that you want to do, because this segment, your junior, senior year of college, and as a college student, if you make your job winning scholarships, it sets you on a trajectory that you just can't even imagine, right? You have zero student loan debt. You have students that are cashing out scholarships because they got a surplus.
Mm.
So you do the job now and you essentially don't have to do it again. You know what I mean? And so it's well worth it. And even if it takes them 10 hours, to win the scholarship, that's still $100 an hour. So again, uh
Sounds to me that, like, really understanding this profile that you keep coming back to is a big part of it, and I think every student is different, every family is different. Is this something that you work with families to develop so that they know what they're eligible for? What's a streamlined list of opportunities I should go after based on, my students' strengths? Like, how do you engage families who are in
yeah.
this spot of overwhelm, trying to get through senior year, get into all the schools, but then also find the opportunities for funding.
Yeah, absolutely. So at capturegreatness.org, there's a scholarship profile worksheet that parents can download for free. If you get the book, though, Scholars Get Dollars, you'll actually see 14 scholarship categories. And so I want parents to know that there are a myriad of different scholarship categories. The profile, though, is going to take like the top 8, and then your student will essentially answer the questions, and that will help guide you. So there are scholarships available for folks that have learning differences, physical differences, all of those things. And so what we want to do, and this does not, please do not wait until your senior year because that's the most stressful, right? But as your child is developing into the scholar that we know they'll graduate to be, you want to be updating the profile, looking at the questions, use it in a way as a diagnostic. If you see that there's one area that's not need based, right? But that you can strengthen that area so that when it's time to apply for college and for scholarships, they have a chance of earning more scholarship dollars in those areas. So that's a free resource. It's right on the website, and parents can get started there. For more information on the scholarship process, the team work makes the dream work, and then what to write, I would refer parents to the book Scholars Get Dollars.
Okay. And I know you also have an e-course that parents and students can take, and we'll definitely link to that and share more about that so people can get involved and get the information that they need, self included. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Here on the Purposecaping podcast, we talk a lot about rest and how we can lighten our loads to prevent burnout, to come out of burnout. And one of the biggest loads, I think, can be the weight of uncertainty, potential uncertainty, not knowing. I know for me earlier this spring, just the uncertainty of, hey, we've gotten into all of these schools, but how are we going to manage to pay for it? It's extremely heavy, extremely heavy. And so I just want to affirm you that the work you're doing for families, especially families that fall outside of the bounds of, the need based system, this is such important work for our mental health because when you are worried about what will happen next for your child, especially when you've invested very heavily in their childhood's education, extracurriculars, etc., it's an exhausting predicament to be in when you're just trying to figure out how to make things work beyond the threshold of childhood, right? So thank you for that. I definitely feel just even talking to you, and we've talked in the last year several times. Just talking to you has lightened my mental load and made me feel hopeful about all of the preparation and the work and the investment I've made in my children and how we can kind of wrap it all up and get the funding for which we duly deserve. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
sharing.
Amanda.
Yes, and tell us again, shout out that website. Let us know where we can get in touch with you, where we can get your book, where we can engage with you further if people want to reach out to work with you or to maybe get your help developing a customized plan for their scholars. Where can people find you both on the website, on social media? Like, where do you want people to come?
Yes, so everything starts at capturegreatness.org. The book is available at capturegreatness.org, and the free e-course, Secrets to Scholarship Success, That's what you get when you just join our community at capturegreatness.org. For social, you can talk to me. I love LinkedIn so much. So I'm on LinkedIn at Melissa Avro MED. And then for our Instagram and YouTube, that's going to be Capture Greatness Scholars.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you for having me. I hope this helps.
Absolutely. I already know. I already know.
I'm rooting for the mom.
Yay!